Is Succession one of the greatest TV shows of all time? Does it deserve to be in the Mount Rushmore, which is the top four of dramatic prestige TV shows? That's the question that we are going to talk about today. Before we get into it, my name is Scott. I'm really excited that you're here. For people that have been here a while, they kind of like my style. I've got some exciting news. I just opened up a Substack. And so what I do with these TV videos that I make is I typically write them out almost word for word. There's some ad libs in there, and then I basically, use that script to make the videos. So what I'm going to be doing from now on is when I write it, I'm just going to post it up on Substack. I'm going to put a link to my Substack in the description below, and so you can sign up there. It's free, and I might talk about things other than TV shows, but I'm definitely going to be talking about a lot of TV, especially if we can get some new good stuff going on. I want to check out Silo. I haven't seen Silo yet, but I've heard really good things about it. I've liked Blacklist, but that's ending in a couple weeks, and the last 4 seasons have not been that good. So I'm curious to see what else you're watching on the back end. On my side, I am watching Justified, and that I think came out, or the last episode aired probably in 2012, 2013. So it's an old one, but it's got Walter Goggins in there, and he is phenomenal. So with that said, there is plenty more coming in my mind. I just gotta keep on making the time to do this because it's so fun. But I'm a busy guy. Okay, so let's get into Succession and let's talk about where does it rank all time? I really don't think in 2023 there has been a show that's garnered as much coverage and anticipation as Succession. Seemingly everywhere you looked, someone was talking, writing, making videos about Succession. It's won countless Emmy awards. It's actually thwarted one of my favorite shows of all time, Better Call Saul, from winning any Emmy awards. We'll see if they can change that in a month or two. And the show's creator, Jesse Armstrong, made the really, I think, great decision to go out on top, if you will, and not milk the show for all it's worth. He said the 4th and last season of Succession is going to be the last one. And so he does deserve credit for, cutting it off there as opposed to going on past its expiration date like other great shows like Lost. I love Lost. Walking Dead, I've never seen it. Game of Thrones, I've never seen it. But boy, I talk to people who like those shows and they are not happy with how long it dragged on. So kudos to Succession and Jesse Armstrong for being able to call it off at the end of the 4th season. Another thing that Succession had going for it is it was in the right spot at the right time. The show came about at the perfect time, right when there was a heightened political angst in our country. There's a distrust of the media from both sides, right and left. There's growing income inequality at a time when we have record high inflation, causing more frustration among those simply getting by, while at the same time, those same people and other people are blaming, rich billionaires and millionaires that they honestly, they kind of hate. They despise those people. Eat the rich type, philosophy. Last but not least, in terms of the right place at the right time, there was a dysfunctional family dynamic that was highly relatable to a lot of people, unfortunately. And so there's something for a wide variety of viewers to kind of latch on to pick at and to say, hey, I can relate to this, or, that resonates with me. Another thing that Succession had going for it, and I should have said this at the outset, but I'm just going to list out some really positive things about Succession, and then I'm going to talk about some things that I didn't love about it. The next thing that it had going for it was the acting was top tier. Even though there weren't any blockbuster stars that signed on at the beginning, although the character who played Logan, he was a big name, but he wasn't a blockbuster name. But despite no blockbuster names, every actor that signed on did an incredible job. I personally love Jeremy Strong, who played Kendall, but you really can't say that any of the main characters did a poor job. I think all of them did their characters justice. And what I think is a big compliment is that when we see those actors in the future, in future films, TV shows, what have you, we're going to say to ourselves, there's Kendall, there's Shiv, there's Roman, there's so-and-so. We're going to be able to, we won't be able to, get those characters out of our mind because they left such a mark on us, which is a sign that they did their job in the best possible way. Another great component that Succession had to it was that it was witty, It was sharp. The writing was witty and sharp. And so great acting is not possible without great writing, without the smart, humorous dialogue that we had along the way. Every episode had some kind of new outburst from Logan, a raunchy joke, a new outburst from Logan, a raunchy joke from Roman, a hilarious and absurd dialogue between Greg and Tom, or a more serious and dramatic touch that might have featured Kendall or Shiv. And when you put all of that together, it's no wonder that it received the acclaim that it did. And as the show came to a close, there's a number of TV critics, podcasters, fans who started questioning if the show was worthy of being discussed as the best dramatic TV show of all time. So we're going to exclude, I Love Lucy, which I think is an unbelievable show. Newhart, we'll exclude that. MASH, I know that might be up there as well. I don't know how people feel about The Office. I don't know if anyone would put Office number one, but we're going to exclude all of those sitcom type shows and just stick on dramatic TV shows. Now, this praise of Succession is probably best exemplified by the website The Ringer, which focuses on sports and culture, and it was created by Bill Simmons. In Bill's podcast, and he's a very famous podcaster, sports guy, in his podcast right before the finale Succession, he asked his guests this question: where would you rank Succession all time? And he had, and I don't have their last names, but he asked his friends Charlie and Van Latham this question, and then Bill adds his own commentary in there. And so let me start off with Charlie with his quote. He says, "Bill, this is officially my greatest TV show of all time." And then Bill says, "Wow." Bill himself interjects, and he says, "If Succession nails this season finale, it has to be in the top 3, the top 4 of all time." And then Van Latham, he says, "If it sticks the landing, I'm not sure how I've seen a better TV show." As I listened to that clip in honestly complete disbelief, I realized that there were plenty of other people who held the show in high regard, if not similarly high regard. And I wondered to myself, am I missing something, or are they missing something? Because while the show was certainly very good, it doesn't come anywhere close to the level of an all-time great, and it certainly doesn't deserve a place on the Mount Rushmore of dramatic TV. And let's discuss why. While the show was well written and the actors did a very noble job, all of that couldn't hide the fact that there was a lack of character development throughout the series. Despite the changing circumstances from seasons 1 till the end of season 4, the characters didn't really evolve. Instead, the show just repeated the same themes over and over and over again. As discussed before, there was a recklessness of modern day media. There was a harmful combination of capitalism and journalism. There's a never-ending cycle of family trauma and abuse, among many other themes. And the people who loved the show, especially members of the media who wrote about and talked about Succession for in excess of what the viewership numbers justified, they have largely agreed with those societal and political points that Armstrong was trying to make in the show. So they had no issue with repeating those never-ending themes with, again, little character development. The themes that we saw in season 1 were the same themes that we saw in season 4, and there were nuances, but it was the same overarching story. Let's recap a few of them. For 3.5 seasons, we had a rich, successful, arrogant father who created a media empire that he would not relinquish to his petulant, spoiled kids. The kids tried to please and impress his dad to take control of the company, but with no success. Over and over and over, that was the main storyline for every season until the pattern was broken in season 4 when Logan died, and then finally we got something new for the last 7 episodes. Shiv and Tom are in a middling relationship where they aren't really sure if they are truly wanting to be with each other, but they can't get themselves out of that relationship, and so they continue being in it despite being lukewarm, despite being relatively unhappy. Connor and Willa are together because she is hot and he is rich. Kendall wants nothing more than to be the CEO of Daddy's company, but he cannot ever seal the deal, whether it's in season 1, episode 1, where he's essentially auditioning for the job, or when he's trying to force Logan out later in season 1, or in the season finale with his siblings. Everything that I just mentioned, we saw in every single season with little to no development, growth, or arc of any of the characters. I had a friend who watched the first 2 episodes and said, I didn't really like these characters. I didn't want to spend my time on this show, but I came back and I watched the last 2 episodes. And you know what? And you know what she said? That she did not miss anything in between that. And it's hard to argue with that because the story and the premise of the show was a succession, which we were promised in the first episode, but we really didn't get it until the very last episode. I don't want to say that everything in between was filler, but it does take a lot away from the show in my mind when you can skip so much. You can skip entire seasons and you could still fulfill the promise of the show. Compare that to something like The Wire, where each season was focused on the dysfunction of various aspects of crime and poverty-ridden Baltimore, from union workers to the media, to gangs, to courts, to the school system. Each season had something unique that it wanted to impart about society. To fully understand what was going on and the point that the show's creator, David Simon, was trying to make, you had to embrace what he liked to call lean-in television. Put the phone down, no scrolling, lean up in your seats, and really focus on what's going on. 2 other shows that would likely make my Mount Rushmore of TV, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, they take us through a whirlwind journey of a particular character and how that character changed and devolved over time while exploring their moral failings. Each of these 3 shows offer something different, but you can't understand the end of the show without knowing the journey that the show takes you through. Contrast that with Succession, where Shiv, Roman, and Kendall are all, in my mind, essentially the same person in the last episode that they were in season 1. I don't think you can say that about Walter White or Saul Goodman. Another point that about the characters is that they were generally awful people with not much moral ambiguity. Sure, you might love Roman's humor or sympathize with Shiv and her struggle to garner respect from the men around her. You might laugh at Tom and Greg's hilarious interactions. I loved them. But to really elevate the show into something as high as a Mount Rushmore of prestige dramatic TV, you have to bring in another element. You have to bring some type of moral tension that makes the viewer really think about the circumstances and the decisions that the characters find themselves in. One of my favorite shows of all time, although I'm not sure I would put it in my Mount Rushmore, is The Shield. You all should watch it if you have not already. In that show, crooked cop Vic Mackey cuts corners and commits illegal acts constantly, but in his mind, many of the instances that he does that are for the greater good, and the showrunner wants to illustrate the question of, despite his flaws, do you want this guy protecting your neighborhood? Because he was very, very effective at what he did. And I would imagine that there are a certain number of people, especially in poverty-ridden areas, who could look past many of Vic's flaws to say that yes, they want him working the streets. The same sympathy and moral dilemma can be asked for Walter White, a down-on-his-luck, lower-income guy who simply wants to leave a legacy to his family after he passes away. Would you cook meth? Probably not, but many viewers can understand the desperation he feels and why he makes some of the choices that he does. As far as the writing, yes, many parts of it are incredibly well done, and the acting, again, from Jeremy Strong is fantastic. But does anyone actually talk like these characters talk in real life? It seems as if every character wants to come up with the perfect, witty, snarky one-liner, and that's actually what a lot of people like about the show, but it isn't realistic, and it felt contrived in a way. That writers were basically trying to outdo themselves with a nifty one-liner above what they said in the previous episode or what they said in the previous scene. And again, I really don't think you can find many, if any, people who actually talk this way. But I think the thing that bothered me the most was the media hype. I felt like it was simply nauseating, completely overwhelming. The show did deserve praise, but what we got from the media was above and beyond reasonable. I've already mentioned or I need to mention The Ringer again, because they had countless countless articles on the show. When I searched through their website, it looks like they wrote 764 articles just about Succession. They were absolutely obsessed, and I'm going to also put up a snapshot from Axios, which covered how many articles the top rated TV shows got in 2022 to 2023. And as you'll see on this chart, the number of articles that we got about Succession far exceeded what we got from any other show, and it really wasn't even close. The other shows combined don't even come close to the number of articles that we got from Succession. And so again, my point here is that it's not that the show was bad, it's that the media kind of stuffed it down our face, and we got so much of it that I personally got sick of it. A few more media instances that made me roll my eyes. The LA Times did a fake obituary for Logan Roy when he passed away. DraftKings, the gambling company, made fake odds for who would be the new CEO of Waco Roystar. I'm messing up that name. I already forgot. And then, of course, my Twitter feed was completely inundated with fanboys and fangirls questioning if there had been a better TV show ever. The hype just completely outpaced the quality of the show. I would probably give this show a 7 to 8 out of 10. But yeah, if you want to be on the Mount Rushmore of TV, if you want to have one of the best shows of all time, it's got to be a 10 out of 10. And so this was a very good show. I'm glad I watched it. But is it an all-time great? Is this show in the Mount Rushmore of dramatic TV shows? Is it better than The Sopranos, The Wire, The Shield, Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Lost, 24, or many other shows that I simply haven't even had the time to watch, so I can't even rank them yet? Is it better than any of those? Folks, it's not even close. And to anyone who disagrees with me, well, I know what you can do.
Fuck off. Hey, fuck off.